It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Terry Root, a fellow advocate for addressing climate change and an FLVCS supporter. Dr. Root is a senior fellow emerita at the Woods Institute for the Environment at Stanford University. She researches how wild animals and plants are changing with climate change, with a current focus on the possible mass extinction of species with warming. Dr. Root has been a lead author for the third and fourth assessment reports of the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, commonly known as the IPCC. The IPCC shared the Nobel Prize in 2007 with Vice President Al Gore. Dr. Root has received many other honors, too numerous to list tonight, otherwise she'd never get to talk. So she holds a PhD in biology from Princeton University. The title of Dr. Root's talk tonight is What's New in Climate Change? The IPCC Sixth Assessment Report of the Working Group 1. Please give Dr. Root a warm welcome.
Okay, so this is what I want to talk to you about today is climate change in general, and then also climate change in what the Sixth Assessment Report. There have been 6 assessment reports. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the IPCC and also about the COP. But before I do that, I want to remind you what climate change is. This is one of them, Death Valley. This was on August 16th, 2020. This was the hottest day, reliably recorded day since 1913, I think it was. And it was 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, if you think about that, at 104, enzymes start denaturing, which means you start cooking. So here, all these plants and animals that were outside, not inside in the air conditioning, were literally cooking. So, okay, this is a one-in-a-lifetime event, right? Wrong. July 9th, 2021, it hit 130 degrees again. So we're having it's not a new normal, it's a new abnormal. So we think of things that are abnormal. This is abnormal, thank God, but it's more frequent than we really want it to be. Here's another one. You remember the big freeze when Ted Cruz went down to Mexico and got out of it? You know, he escaped. We won't say anything about him. And Imhoff, Senator Imhoff from Oklahoma, got on the stage at the Senate and said, and we think we have global warming. It's freezing in Texas. The reason it was freezing in Texas is because of global warming. What's happening is we have melted the Arctic, and the jet stream now is getting pushed down, and it's coming all the way down into Texas. So that's the hard part there. So this was one in a lifetime? No. As we melt the Arctic more and more and more, we're going to see this happening a lot more. So Ted Cruz is going to spend a lot more time in Mexico. Yes. Okay. And around here, we worry about hurricanes. And I love the fact this was Friday. It was Friday, the 13th in November of 2020. We actually had the 30th named storm for that year. And I'm sure you all remember this. I remember it very, very well. So that's a very unusual. Well, we've had a lot of storms again this year. But the other thing that's happened is that we have a lot more high category storms that are happening. We had 7 high category storms in 2020. Was that unusual? Yes, but it tied the year for 2005. So again, we think that's a one in a lifetime thing, having 7 categories, high categories hitting. It's not. It's happened twice in our lifetime already, twice. So the new normal is a new normal, and that is causing a new abnormal also. Now, let's talk a little bit about the IPCC. I volunteered for the IPCC for 21 years, It was the hardest work I have ever done, and I loved every minute of it and hated every minute of it too. So it was really rough. But the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, is when literally over 2,000 scientists from all over the world get together and talk about climate change. We're divided into 3 different groups: Working Group 1, Working Group 2, Working Group 3, and then all of that is put together into a synthesis report. Working Group 1 is the physical science of climate, and it's been argued we really understand this now. We really don't need to have this done more, but anyway. Working Group 2, impacts, adaptations, and vulnerabilities. That was the working group I was in, because I worked on how plants and animals were being impacted and how they were adapting and what their vulnerabilities were. And then Working Group 3 is mitigation, what we can do about it, and then the synthesis. Working Group 1 for the Sixth Assessment report has been published, and that is what I want to tell you about tonight. And it's hot off the press, and I'll show you what I mean by that, because some of the plots are a little funky. Okay, this is telling you a little bit about the IPCC. So this climate change thing could be a problem. This was in the very first assessment report in 1990. 1995, climate change, definitely a problem. 1995, that was when they said that there was a human impact on climate. That was in 1995. A good friend of mine authored that. 2001, yep, we should really be getting on with sorting this out pretty soon. That's what all of us scientists were saying. I was there, I was saying it. 2007, look, sorry to sound like a broken record here, but come on, people. 2013, we really have checked and we're not making this up. 2019, it should be 2021. Sorry. Okay. Hey, is this microphone on? Tap, tap, tap. So as my late husband would say, the scientists have really failed. We have figured out what is wrong. We have tried to tell the IPCC is an organization that tries to get the information out to policymakers. If we'd done our job right, we wouldn't be in this bind right now. We really, really are in a bind. We are in a real pickle, if you excuse this statement. Okay, so let's talk about the IPCC. It is not prescriptive. The scientists are not saying, this is what you have to do it. They say, here is what is going on. If you have this, this will happen. If you have this, this will happen. If you have this, this will happen. It's not telling people what to do. It is telling what might happen. So it's descriptive. It's what is happening or what has happened. So we use recent historical and prehistorical data to look at all of this. So here's an example. This is showing you the global temperature change. Now, this is global temperature change. So it's in funny measures. It's in degrees C, and it goes as high as 1.5. So it's a change, and that change is what it would be if humans hadn't affected it. And what do we know that temperature is? That was the temperature from 1880 to 1900. You take that average, and then you take the average today and subtract that from it, and that's the change. And what we're seeing is that we are up by quite a bit. We are up above 1 degree C above natural already. We're actually at 1.1 and a little bit more than that. And you can see that on the x-axis, it's in years, and it goes all the way back to year 1. And you can see how much warmer we are now than we have been in 2,000 years. That's pretty startling. And that is entirely due to us. So now if you look at decades of warming, you can see how it has gone. And in 2010, this is actually a different data set. The data set that the that the IPCC was using is saying we're up 1.1. This one is the NASA data set, and it's saying we're already up to 1.2 degrees C above natural. We are really warming considerably. So you all remember Earth Day 1970? Woohoo! I remember Earth Day 1970. Well, this is how much the United States has warmed. This is in degrees Fahrenheit, and this is in actual degrees, not change. And you can see that the US has warmed 2.4 degrees Fahrenheit over that 50-some years. That's a lot of warming. That's a lot of warming. Now, what's gone on in Sarasota? This is what's happened in Sarasota. We're up a little bit higher, 2.7 degrees. Now, where is that warming coming from? The winter warming, it's the average winter temperature in Sarasota during that a little bit more than 50 years is 3.6 degrees. So we know our winters are warmer than they used to be by 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. The summer nights, the low temperature, the average low temperature of summer nights has really warmed. It's up by 5.8 degrees Fahrenheit. So here in Sarasota, we're getting a lot warmer. So like I said 2 years ago, I want to do it again. I want you all to make a pact with me and don't ever again say that you believe in global change or global warming or climate change. It's not a belief, it's a fact. So you say the globe is warming, and I know it's warming, the data tell me. So this is a change in surface temperature, and this shows you for the land how it has warmed, and the oceans have also warmed. Now, if you'll note, look at my y-axis, will you? See all those gray things? This is a plot out of the Sixth Assessment report, and that it normally has this thing that goes across it that says draft, waiting to make sure no corrections needed. So that's what's there. Well, I got rid of it in the plot, but anyway, it's a brand new plot, and I couldn't find one that didn't have all that stuff over it. So that's what that is. But that is showing you again how it's warming. Now, warming of the ocean means that the water is expanding. Expanding water means increase in sea level rise. Not good for us here in Florida. Where's all that coming from? Why is this happening? This is also out of the Sixth Assessment report. This is hot off the press. I just got the 415 up there in the right-hand corner. Is that the right? Yeah, the right-hand corner. Right now we have the CO2. Well, first let me tell you what's on the axes. The axes on the x-axis is in thousands of years before the year 2000. And it goes all the way back to 800,000 years ago. 800,000 years ago. And then the red plot is for the abundance of CO2 in the atmosphere, and it's in parts per million. And right now we are at 415 parts per million. So for 800,000 years, we have never been above 300 parts per million. And right now, we're at 415. And I checked that yesterday when I was putting these slides together. So 415, you can check it too. It's on Bloomberg Carbon Clock. Just go on Bloomberg Carbon Clock on Google and you'll find it. Now the green line is for methane, and its x-axis is on the other side, on the right-hand side, and it's in parts per billion. But again, it goes back 800,000 years. Look how high it is compared to how it's been over 800,000 years. That is due to us, just to us. Then we have the I can't ever say that. Nitrous oxide. Thank you. I try to put it all together and it won't come out. Thank you. Nitrous oxide. Thank you. It doesn't spike as much It's cleaned out of the atmosphere pretty rapidly. Actually, methane is cleaned out pretty rapidly too. CO2 takes 1,000 years. That's a concern. But the nitrous oxide is up too compared to what it has been over 800,000 years. Now, naysayers will say, Terry, it's all just natural cycling. Okay, you can see the cycle. Look in CO2. You can see the cycles. They're Milankovitch cycles. They're about 120,000 years. Yes, they're there, but look at how much higher the values are now than over the 800,000 years. Yes, we have cycling going on. Yes, it's natural, but yes, we have people contributing to what's going on with climate change. So where's this all coming from? Here we have the different countries. On the x-axis again is years. On the y-axis is gigatons of CO2 equivalent. And CO2 equivalent means that it also includes methane and nitrous oxides and things like that. It's all greenhouse gases. It's not just CO2. And you can see that we have China is quite high. US, it then comes in. Then you have the EU, India, Russia, Japan, and then international transport. But it didn't really, China really didn't get up that high until fairly recently. Look at the year 2000, it was down fairly low. So the ones that actually caused all the CO2 that's pretty much in the atmosphere right now has been us. One of the ways to look at that is to look at this same plot, but do it per capita. And here it is per capita. And if you look at it per capita, we are a very prosperous country and we put out a lot of CO2. There is no reason we should be putting that much out. Look at the EU and the UK, how much lower it is. They have a great standard of living. We can have that same standard of living and not be putting out so much CO2. We really need to be cutting down on our greenhouse gases. So US, Russia, Japan, China, then the EU. We can learn something from the EU, but that's where all of those spikes were coming from. Okay, so that's the descriptive. The other thing that goes on with the IPCC is they do a lot of modeling. And the reason they do a lot of modeling is because we only have one Earth. You know, in normal experiments, you want to have a control and an experimental group. Well, you can't do that when you have one Earth. So the way that they do the comparison is doing it with modeling and understanding what's going on by using models. Here's an example of what's going on with the models. In here is about 17 different models. Don't hold me to that number. And if you just consider the natural factors, things like solar flares, sunspots, the tilt of the earth, volcanoes, things like that. If you only consider that and you look at the global temperature change again over time, you will see what is in the green envelope, and it's fairly flat. But if you put in human factors with the natural factors, you can actually see how it is going up. So the modeling is telling us that the humans are really doing the changing. That really is, this to me addresses what naysayers are saying. It's not just natural, it's natural and human. This is showing you the heat content in zettajoules. It doesn't really matter what the unit is, zettajoule. But there's modeling and then there's observed, and you can see how the oceans have gotten warmer. That makes sense. If you're going to warm the whole Earth, you're warming the land and you're warming the oceans. Again, you have sea level rise then. And this is the sea level rise. This is one of these plots, again, that's brand new out of the book. And you can see on the right-hand side how it really is going up, up, up high, and sea level rise is rising. So in 2018, since 1880, the sea level has gone up 8 inches. In 2050, we expect the sea level to be up 31 inches. And by 2100, if you assume the person that's looking out over the sea is 6 feet tall, the best estimated is going to be 9 feet. 9 feet. So I'm giving a talk tomorrow on Bird Key. Bird Key is not going to be around, folks, in 2100. It's not going to be there. So where does it look? That's what it looks like. That's with 9 feet of sea level rise by 2100. 2100, it's a long way away for us because we're old.
Don't ever say that.
I know. But it's not that far away. By 2100, we're going to lose all of our barrier islands. So, and even Lakewood Ranch, look up there, Lakewood Ranch is going to be getting some inundation. So it's not good. And then the IPCC also tells you about what might happen. And again, they use model data. And they published a report in October 2020 saying, you guys aren't listening to us. You've got to understand, we don't want to get the globe warmer than 1.5 degrees C. 1.5 degrees C above natural is what the Paris Accord was shooting for. That's what we wanted. So the scientists got together and said, in order for us to make sure that we stay at 1.5 or lower, this is what we need to be doing. We need to be limiting by 2030. We need to be only putting out as much CO2, gigatons of CO2, as 45% of what we put out in 2010. So in 2010, we were almost 40 gigatons. 2017, we're going the wrong direction. We're even over 40 gigatons of CO2. By 2030, we need to be cutting that down. The amount that we had in 2010, 45% of what was in 2010. That's how much we need to be cutting down. Are we going to make it? No, we are not going to be making it. Then they also said that by 2050, we have to be at net zero. Net zero by 2050. Can we do that? Probably not. Maybe by 2070, but probably not by 2050. One problem is that when we are very much of a plastic society, and plastic comes from oil, exactly. So 1 pound of plastic takes 6 pounds of CO2 to be made. So 1 pound of plastic, making 1 pound of plastic puts 6 pounds of CO2 up into the atmosphere. And we are using billions of tons. So by 2050, the amount of tons of plastic we are going to be making will mean that we're going to be getting 25% of our CO2 in the atmosphere is going to be coming from plastic. That is going to be having to be countered somehow by our trees that we're planting. You guys are planting. We need to be doing that. The other thing that that report said, the scientists said that by 2030, we need to have about 50% of our non-biomass in non-biomass renewables. So that includes solar, wind, hydrothermal, nuclear, and what's the hot stuff? Geothermal. Thank you. God, sorry, geothermal. So there's 5 of them. Can we make that by 2030? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. America's not even going to come close. Denmark, Finland, places like that are going to come closer than we are, but we're still not going to make it. By 2050, they say we need to be about 70% biomass renewables. Can we make that? God, I hope so. I don't know if we can or not, but I hope so. I'm on the board of American Wind and Wildlife, and I gave a talk like this for them, and I put this slide up, and they said there is absolutely no hope. We can't get enough wind out there. So that's really discouraging. But it's not just about America, it's about the world, and maybe the rest of the world can save us. The other thing they said is the transportation sector. And we need to have low emission vehicles, so we need to have vehicles that plug in. So by 2030, they said we had to have 5% of the fleet be low emission vehicles. We've already made it. We've done that worldwide. Maybe not in America, but we've done it worldwide. By 2050, we need to be between 35% and 65%. That's a huge range. Can we make that? I personally believe we can. You don't? Nope. Okay, I do. I think we can. I think we can. I think we can. So I sure hope so. Okay, this now is coming from the COP that is going on right now over in Glasgow. And this is showing us now the annual global greenhouse gas emissions. So this is all greenhouse gas emissions in gigatons. And the black line on the left-hand side is showing historical emissions. And we have the x-axis is years and the y-axis is gigatons. And the historical emissions are what has happened, and what the red envelope is showing us what was going to happen pre-Paris, before the Paris Accord came out. Before the Paris Accord came out, we were heading towards 4 degrees C, somewhere in the envelope between 4.2 and 3.6 degrees C. That's where we were heading. Our current pathway, that's our current pathway. Our current pathway has us at about 3 degrees. What we have pledged at the COP in Glasgow is we're heading towards 2 degrees C. It's better than 3, it's much better than 4, but it's also higher than we should be, because here what we really want is something under 1.5. And to hit 1.5 is going to be pretty much impossible, because we're at the pledges right now. So that shows you where the whole thing is. We really have switched from pre-Paris. So these COPs really do make a difference. We have pulled everything down to a different pathway, but we're still heading towards 3 degrees. We need to get it down lower and lower and lower. So here is what the Earth would look like if we had pre-Paris. This is 4 degrees C. Here it would be for current pathways. That's 3 degrees C. It's a little bit cooler. Here it is for 2 degrees C. It's a little bit cooler. That's where we're heading right now, folks. That's where we're heading. And that is for the 1.5 degrees C. That's what we really want to do, because it will make a huge difference as far as suffering in the world by billions of people and trillions of species. So I work on how plants and animals are affected by climate change. So I have to tell you about species. If we go up in the 2007 IPCC that I worked on, we figured out that if we go up to 2 degrees above natural, which I believe we're going to do, we could lose 500,000 species to extinction. Now, we know the names of 2 million species. So that is basically 1/4 of the world's species will be doomed to extinction because of one species, us. I have a moral thing with that. That's hard for me to accept. Plus that, I can guarantee you that in those species that go extinct are going to be species that we need to stay alive. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be real tough. Now, extinction is something that happens all the time, but background extinction rate, so when humans are not affecting it, background extinction rate is less than 1 species goes extinct if you're watching 1,000 species over 1,000 years. So think of a great big huge island, and you have 1,000 species on it, and you watch it for 1,000 years, less than 1 species goes extinct. That's background extinction. What's the extinction rate now? About 1 species in 10 species, not 1,000 species, in a little bit less than 100 years, not 1,000 years. So folks, we already are in this mass extinction event. Species are going extinct on our watch right now. It's happening. So I just wanted to remind you of this plot because I'm going to show you what's coming now for these different countries from the COP. So here is China. Remember, China is the one that goes all the way up to the top. Here's China, and the current policy is in gray. The pledged policy is in yellow. Not much difference. And if we want to get it down to 1.5 degrees C above natural, that's how much they have to drop. Holy mackerel. I don't think it's going to happen, folks. So the rest of the world's going to have to step up. Okay, here we are for the United States. And here we have current policies. We've come down. Look, we really have come down, but the current policies aren't coming down enough. We have pledges out there to come down quite a bit farther. Are we going to meet all those pledges? No. Are we going to meet some of them? Yes, we have to. And then to make it so we don't go above 1.5 degrees C, we have to go down even farther. Can we make that? No, we can't. Not in the time that we're talking right here, by 2030. Here we have the European Union. Again, they're much more, they're much lower than we are. They're a developed country. They have good lifestyles, just like we do. Their current policies are a lot lower than ours. Their pledged policies are a lot lower than ours. Their 1.5 degrees C compatibility is a lot lower than ours. Are they going to make their pledge? I bet they do. They are committed. I really bet they do. Will they make the 1.5? No, I don't think so. Not by 2030, but maybe later. And then here we have India. So the current policies are going higher than they are now. The pledged is going even higher. And then the compatibility is a little bit lower. So there are a lot of countries where the pledges go higher. They're developing countries. They're trying to get electrified, and they're doing it with coal. We need to do something about that. We can do something about that. We just have to take the lead and do it. But there is reason for hope, in my opinion. So all the countries that have been claiming they want to be carbon neutral. In 2016, there were only 6 countries. 2 of them had already done it by 2016. That was Bhutan and Sumatra. No, not Sumatra. I don't remember the other one, I'm sorry. Bhutan is one of them. 2016, there were 6 countries. 2019, there were 67. 2021, there's 134. Woohoo! So there's a commitment. So things are changing. People are realizing that we've got to do something about this. So there is hope. Okay, so what we all must do, all of us, every single one of us that's sitting in this room and that's on the Zoom, all of us can do these things. This is what we're doing to the world. Now think about yourself as being a bird, or better yet, a butterfly trying to cross this area. You can't do it. There's been 2 butterflies that have been migrating from south to north on Baja California. And they have gone as far as Tijuana and San Diego and have gone extinct because they didn't have a way to feed while they crossed across those 2 cities. What can we do? We can do something about that. What we can do is we need to be planting native species. So what we need to do is make a pact in here again for me tonight. Don't ever plant another non-native species. We don't need any more Scheffleras in Florida, I promise you. We need to be planting native plants so that the insects will come. When the insects come, the birds will come, the butterflies will come. Jim and I, my husband and I, have planted our front yard in all natives, and we sat there and we had 12 different species of butterflies the other day, right after the rainstorm. It was fabulous just sitting there and counting different butterflies. And it's all because we don't have grass that Jim has to mow. We have this beautiful, beautiful native plant garden. If you want to know what is native in your area, go to audubon.org/plantsforbirds. And all you do is you type in your zip code. And the zip code you hit the return, and up will come all the native plants in your area. You print it off and you take it to the nursery and you say, this is what I want. And it works. We've done it. There's also native plant nurseries that you can go to. It works. It's beautiful. Celery Fields has a beautiful native plant garden. It's fabulous. The birds are wonderful. The insects are wonderful. But you can know what kind of plants you need. Just go to Audubon. They've done it for you. Audubon.org/plantsforbirds and type in your zip code. The other thing we need is a paradigm shift. And I've shown you this one the last time I was here. Paradigm shifts are important. This one says, blow in her face and she'll follow you anywhere. Okay, some man come up and blow smoke in my face. I don't think I'll follow him anywhere. So this is showing two paradigm shifts. We've had a paradigm shift in smoking. No longer is it publicly permissible to smoke in public. And two, women's lib. So paradigm shifts are important. I personally think we have a paradigm shift that's going. I think the young people are really pushing us to have a paradigm shift. I think it's really working. I think we're all getting on board. America is a lot slower at getting on board than the other places are, but around the world, it really is different. So we need a paradigm shift. Can we do it? Of course we can do it. The thing is we need political will to do paradigm shifts. It helps to have the political will. When we don't have the political will, they don't happen. Think about that the next time you vote. This is the most positive slide that I have on here. On the x-axis is location. On the y-axis is tons of CO2 emitted per person in 2016. I don't have any data later than that, so that's all I've got. The US is in the middle of the orange. That's the average, the US average. But look at DC, New York, California, and even Florida. They are doing things that they know is working. They know how to decrease their CO2 emissions. Mississippi, West Virginia, North Dakota, Wyoming, well, they got big problems. And their main problem is coal, is they're using most of their electric generation is from coal powered. And we got to stop that. Can we? Of course we can. We just got to do it. The coal miners unions are saying we have to stop mining coal. If the coal miners unions are doing it, come on, the rest of the world can get on with us. The rest of the US can get on with it. Okay, so where does all of these greenhouse gas sources come from? This is by sector. 28% is electricity, 29% is transportation, 9% is agriculture, 12% is commercial and residential, and 22% is industry. We can do something in all of those sectors, except the industry is a tough one. So that's a really tough one. So we've got to really tackle the other four. Okay, so what do we need to do when we're going to tackle these? First and foremost, for electricity, we need to have solar rooftops. We have all these deserts all over our cities called rooftops. They're perfect for putting solar panels on, perfect for putting solar panels on. We need to have wind farms. Can we do that? Of course we can. We just need to be doing it. Whenever you want to buy an appliance, please buy the best Energy Star appliance you possibly can. Don't buy one that's not strong, buy one that's very strong. And if you have incandescent light bulbs any incandescent light bulb, throw it away, put it in the landfill, get rid of it. Jim and I took a trip this summer, went for 2 months in our RVs, and we stayed with friends. And I was shocked at how many of our friends still have incandescent light bulbs. If you have an incandescent light bulb, throw it away, please, please. And it even includes your Christmas tree lights, right? We need to do that. We can put them in the landfill. It's okay. Transportation. We want to have plug-in vehicles or electric vehicles. People are a little bit worried about range, whatever it's called, range. So they're worried about how far they can go. So get a plug-in. So a plug-in hybrid, you have a battery and you have another kind of motor, whatever it's called. You know what I'm meaning. Anyway, you want to have a plug-in hybrid that gets at least 40 miles to the battery, because most of us can do our errands in under 40 miles. And then you'll just be always using electricity. And if you have rooftop solar, you get free mileage that way. That's Jim and I have rooftop solar, and we have an electric car, and we feel so smart. Okay, agriculture. We have to worry about all the beef and the lamb. So what we need to do is we need to pick a day. And I said, pick Monday. Pick a day where you have no meat and no dairy. Can you do it? Of course you can do it. When I was a kid, my grandmother was a Roman Catholic, and she always had fish on Fridays. My heaven's sakes, if my grandmother can have fish on every single Friday, I can have a Monday when I have no meat and dairy. Or do it another way. A friend of mine does it another way. She picks one meal during the day and has no meat or dairy. So every single day she has one meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner. She picks one of them and has no meat and dairy. You can do it. And I put a plus after the Monday to say, why don't you pick 2 days or maybe even 3 days? And then the other thing I wanted to say is, if you absolutely must eat beef, will you do me a huge favor and buy beef that is sustainably raised? There's a place called BlueNestBeef.com, and it is certified by Audubon to not be killing the grassland species of birds. Grassland species of birds are the ones that are plummeting in abundance the most, except for albatrosses. Albatrosses are plummeting more, then comes the grassland birds. We've got to stop that. So if you're going to eat beef, that's fine, but get your beef from someplace that is raising the cows in a way that is not destroying the habitat. Is it going to be more expensive?
Yes.
Absolutely. Is it worth it to not have the extinction of species? To me, it is. So what do I give for Christmas presents? Blue Nest beef to my nephews and my nieces that eat beef. It's a great way. It's a great present. They love it. It's wonderful. So, and I don't have any stock with Blue Nest beef. I have nothing at all. I just think they're a wonderful company. They're doing a lot of good. Okay, commercial and residential. What can we do? We need to talk to our county commissioners and our city commissioners and say, change the laws. We do not want to ever build another building that is not zero emission. Can we do it? Of course we can do it. Does it cost more money? Of course it costs more money. Is it going to cost less money in the long run? Yes. That's the point. And we can do it. So why don't we do it? It's because of money. We've got the money. We need to change the laws. We can do that. The other thing all of us can do is we can call Florida Power and Light and say, come and do an energy audit of my house. They'll do it for free, and they'll tell you what you need to fix so that you're more energy efficient. It's free, for God's sake. We can do it. It'll save you money. Anyway, that's what we can do. Industry. What do we do about industry? The industry is making steel. Industry is making cement. How do we save all of the greenhouse gas emissions going up. It's really tough, really tough. But you guys are already doing it. Plant trees. Does it sound trivial? Yeah, it sounds trivial. Is it going to make a huge difference? It's going to make a huge difference. We've just got to get people out there planting trees. You guys are doing it. We're doing it. Now, there's a lot of websites that are around that say, give us money and we'll plant trees. I've done a lot of work trying to figure out which ones are good and which ones are bad. Many of them plant the wrong kind of trees. Many of them plant monocultures, which is not good. This place, cooleffect.org, again, I have no stock in it at all. I just think they're a fabulous, fabulous company, cooleffect.org. And what you do is you say, I'm going to be flying from, well, my husband and I went to Alaska. We're going to be flying to Alaska. They say, okay, that's this many miles from where you are. It'll take this much carbon. So give us a check for, I don't know what it was, $67, and we'll offset your carbon. The other thing I do for Christmas presents is I can never figure out what to get my brother for Christmas. He doesn't need anything. He doesn't want anything. So what do? I give them money to offset some of his carbon footprint that he lives his life at. He loves it. He feels so good and so smart. He figures out how long it will go till. So however much I pay for the year up till September or something, and then he pays the rest from September to December. Anyway, the cooleffect.org, again, there's other ones out there, but I really think Cool Effect is a good one. So all of us can do all of these things, right? You guys are doing it already. We're planting trees already, for God's sake. It is absolutely fabulous. That's the other thing. And I can't stress this enough. We wasted 4 years, and you know how we wasted those 4 years. We can't waste another 6 or 4 more years. We have got to get out there and get voting for the people who understand how important climate change is. We're talking about the extreme suffering of billions of people and trillions of species. I'm not exaggerating. I am not exaggerating. So vote. Your voice really, really matters. But I'm talking to the choir here. Try to get all your friends to vote. That's what I try to do too. Okay. You all remember when we saw this? It was Christmas Eve, I think, in '68. Anyway, that was the first time I looked at the earth and I thought, holy mackerel, look how fragile it is. Look how fragile our earth is. And it is fragile. It's the only one we've got. Can we take care of it? Yes. Are we taking care of it? No. But we can step up and we can do something about it. We really can. We just have to get off of our and do it. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it. You're incredible. I never had a standing ovation. Thank you. Oh, do we have any questions?
We do have some questions. So
okay. Oh my gosh, we've got people are collecting them.
Yep, we do have some questions. So we have the first one. I'll just go ahead and read the first one. This one is from Dennis Plews. He says, similar to sulfur dioxide, can carbon dioxide be pulled out of the air by man-made rain and sequestered in lava?
I don't think so. Not that I know of at all. That's something I don't know in particular. There are rocks that actually react with it, but it's not, I don't think it's lava. I think it's something else. But the point with CO2 in our atmosphere stays up there 1,000 years. That's 40 generations. So what we are doing right now is affecting our great 39 great grandchildren. So what we do right now matters a lot. So getting the CO2 out of the atmosphere is a tough one.
Okay. Dennis. So this one's from Kenny. He wants to know, is there an Audubon webpage for plants, just like for butterflies?
Audubon.org has a really good website, and you can go and explore it. They have done, Audubon did a study and figured out how many birds are actually going to be affected by climate change. And it's 2/3 of the birds in North America are going to be affected by climate change. They're going to be at risk of extinction, 2/3 of our birds. So Audubon.org is where you should go.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question is from Skip Parrish, and he wants to know, what is the effect will CO2, the increase in CO2, have on the growth of plants?
Okay, CO2 fertilizes plants. And so some plants it's going to make grow stronger and bigger. The trouble is that there's going to be a difference in competition. So when you have plants competing with each other, they compete a lot. One may win and another may lose. So some are going to win, some are going to lose. Some are going to be fertilized by a lot and some are not.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question is from Barbara Logan, and she wants to know, what can we learn from the EU?
Oh my gosh, what can we learn from the EU is a lot. There's their lifestyle. We need to be practicing what their lifestyle is. We really need to be changing how we buy things, what we do, or how we drive, how we heat our houses, everything. There's a lot that we can do through the EU. And I think we need to learn that. We need to find out what's going on with Denmark and Finland and all that too. So there's a lot we can do. We just need to do it.
Okay, the next one's from Philippe Koenig. He wants to know, how do we persuade the Trumpists to come along?
Next.
Okay.
No. You need to meet them where they are and tell them where they're wrong. But that's how I do it. When I started doing this back in 1985, I had a lot of hecklers. Then I went for a long time with no hecklers. And then all of a sudden I started getting hecklers again. And what I do is I show them how what they're basing their facts on are lies. And I actually show them how they are lies. That's what I do. How do you bring Trumpers along? Another way to do it is I have invited people over to the house, and they're not complete Trumpers. I must admit that. They're just not complete believers. And I'll fix a nice dinner, meatless dinner, and then we'll watch a movie called Chasing Ice. And if you haven't seen Chasing Ice, you should watch Chasing Ice. You actually have to pay for it on Prime, Amazon Prime right now. It's $3 or something. Anyway, it is about how glaciers are melting, and it really convinces people without you having to say much that we really are warming, because the ice is melting. If ice is melting, it has to be getting warmer out there. So that's one of the ways. How do you get somebody who's a real hardcore Trumpy? You don't. I think you just have to just say there's a third of the country that you can't do anything about.
Okay, the next one, and let's see. Another one from Dennis is, how is the deep ocean temperature doing? And he says a methane hydrate issue.
Okay, the methane hydrate issue is a big one. Methane hydrates, there are big areas in the ocean that are frozen methane. They're called clathrates. And what's happening is they are under a lot of pressure, and they are under a lot of cold temperature, and they're not melting. But as the ocean starts warming, the pressure gets less, and the temperature gets higher and the clathrates are melting. And right now we have clathrates that are actually melting all around in the ocean. Cruises will go by and they'll see the ocean just roiling, just bubbling. Those are clathrates that are melting. It's pure methane coming straight up into the atmosphere. And methane is a 38% stronger greenhouse gas than CO2 is. So methane's a tough one. And we don't want the clathrates to melt. That's why the 2 degrees is so important. We don't want to go above 2 degrees because then the clathrates are going to melt. There's also methane in the permafrost. If we don't go above 2 degrees, that won't melt either. But we're going to go above 2 degrees. So anyway.
All right, and I think this will be the final question here.
Okay.
Again, the last one from Dennis is, what is the status of the flow of the Gulf Stream and AMOC?
Okay. What he's talking about is the ocean currents that goes around. It goes from Africa down around along the Atlantic coast up to Europe and then comes back down. So it's a circle that goes like this. And what happens is it takes warm water, warm area, the warm water in this area, and brings it up and keeps Maine and Newfoundland and all of that, and Europe in particular, warm. The thing is that as the ocean is warming, that current is getting weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. And if we lose that, that's going to be tough. The other thing that's happening is Greenland is melting. And Greenland is putting a lot of fresh water on top of the salt water. And that is changing the current also. So what you have is this current could actually stop. And if the current stops, then that's going to throw Europe, Maine, all of that into very, very cold areas, become very, very, very cold. And that's going to change lifestyles dramatically. The good thing is that I have a colleague of mine that's at the University of Illinois, and he has shown that if we turn that current off, that it will start again once Greenland completely melts away. Now, is Greenland going to melt away? Yes, we're past that tipping point. There's nothing we can do to stop Greenland from melting. That's 27 to 29 feet of sea level rise. That is going to happen. That is going to happen. How soon? That's the question. Probably 2300, so we'll be long gone. But think about it, 27 and 29 feet of sea level rise is going to happen. On that note.
Well, thank you very much, Terry. So I'll hand it over to Jim.
Thank you very much, Terry. That was just a wonderful talk. And the good thing about it, our group understands a lot of what you told us tonight. Some of it we're still learning, but we're trying to learn as best we can. And we're going to do our little bit about it. We're committed to do that. And one thing I would ask, though, please ask people when you give your talks to make the donation to us, because we're planting those trees and that costs us money. I hate to be a little selfish, but believe me, I don't get paid to do it.
That sounds great. I'll do that.
And they can figure their carbon use on one of the websites you mentioned, and then they can make their donation to us. And we are planting all native trees.
Perfect.
I mean, and they won't let us plant trees that aren't native.
Good.
So Mike would probably shoot us if we tried to do that. So thank you very much. With no further ado, then, meeting is adjourned.